Any traffic signals. Yeah. Well,
All right, we have 5:30. We ready to begin?
Yes, sir.
All right, the March the 28th, 2022 recess council meeting for the city of Ellsworth. We'll go ahead and come to order. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, the first item on our agenda will be the consent agenda for the water and sewer termination request. Do we have any?
We do not, Mr.
We
Mayor.
do not. Okay, we'll move right along. So the next section of our meeting will be petitions and delegations. I'll read this to you. I believe we have one tonight. Members of the public are welcome to use this time to comment about any matter relating to city business not listed on this agenda. The comments that are discussed under petitions and delegations may or may not be acted upon by the council during this meeting. There is a 3-minute time limit. Please stand and wait to be recognized by the mayor. You must state your name and address. I will remind you after 3 minutes. I'll try to politely just give you the suggestion that 3 minutes is elapsed. And at that point, if you just want to spend the next few seconds just wrapping it up. So just to kind of let you know that that is our policy and we're going to go ahead and follow it. So do we have any petitions and delegations?
We have one, Mr. Stonebreaker.
Mr. Stonebreaker. Just please state your name and address.
Dave Stonebreaker, 304 East 10.
Very, very good. Thank you.
Okay. I won't take more than 2 minutes of your time. I'm a local and I've been here, my wife and I, in our 49th year, so we're not a newcomer. I just want to affirm that Colby Richards and Patrick Hamill are a real asset to your golf course in your city and county. I told Patrick today I was going to do this. He said, that's fine. And I said, I don't know what I'm going to say. And as you can tell by me stuttering around, I probably don't. But I will tell you, they're two capable men. They got a great staff. The course is in great shape. And I appreciate also the fact that the council has given them the means to do this. Financial lawnmowers or whatever they use. It is a tough job. You get more criticism than you do praise and that kind of thing. Usually has to do with their golf game, not the guys. But I endorse their work wholeheartedly, and I support them in what they do. And I tell you, the one thing I like about it is they're approachable. And sometimes you get people in positions which don't want to listen. They do. So I appreciate those two gentlemen and all the people that work under them, because they're very loyal and good people. And that's all I have to say, and I don't suppose you have any questions. I got a big potato in the oven.
Thank you for coming, Mr. Stonebreaker.
Thank you, David.
I know a lot of you may not know, that's okay too.
Thank you.
These people in school.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Later. Thank you. Any more petitions and delegations?
I'm Karen Schreiner from, I live at 109 Cedar Crest Drive. Last week, or last meeting, when I was here, I talked about the people who were evicted from our substandard housing. They left stuff on the front, on the driveway. Well, somebody came and talked to them and all they did was moved it to the back. So we need to do something. There has to be some kind of an ordinance that they can't, if somebody's evicted from the house, they have to take their belongings with them. We can't just keep having them piled out there, either in front of their house or behind their house.
We'll look into it.
Very good. Okay. Any other petitions and delegations from the public? No one else? Okay. All right, the next section will be unfinished business. We have a water rate study report that we will begin here in a minute.
All right, Mr. Mayor, council back. I know that Steve Majette asked for it, so I have to go back at least 6 months when he was still on council. It's been longer than that. Can't remember when I contacted you, but Mr. Brown has been nothing but patient with me as I drug my feet on this entire thing. But the council had requested a relook at our water and sewer rates based on the current usage and the potential capital improvements. So Mr. Brown produced a very comprehensive report for you. He's not going to go through all 123 pages, so don't worry. But he and I talked before the meeting, and what he's going to present is pretty straightforward. And then, so we'll give him however much time he needs to talk, and then give you guys a chance to ask questions.
Thank you for the extensive discussion of the reporting and everything. I'll just go ahead and defer to Councilman Scritchfield. He told me he's read it several times, got it all committed to memory, so he's ready to go. Again, I'm Carl Brown. I'm the president of GettingGreatRates.com. I used to work for the Missouri Department of Natural Resources, which is the water and sewer and other environmental things permitting agency, like the Department of Health here in Kansas. I used to administer SRF loans, so state grants, so funding programs for building new wastewater and water systems. And then I also, for during my time there, did technical assistance work. I helped local governments, cities, water and sewer districts, entities like that. I helped them to figure out mostly how they could come into compliance with DNR's requirements. So how they could get their permits approved and how they could solve non-compliance problems. I found during my stay with Missouri DNR that folks don't want to do the wrong thing. They just can't afford to do the right thing. They need the money to be able to do the right thing. Now, grants and loans, that helps, but almost all money for water and sewer systems come from internal sources, ratepayers. So you all, but also these folks, ratepayers are the ones who pay the vast majority of the expenses for a water or sewer system. It is that way everywhere in the country. There isn't a magic bullet that makes water and sewer free. It has to get paid for by somebody, and almost everywhere, almost all the time, almost all the money comes from ratepayers. And it only makes sense that it's done that way. That if you use the service, you ought to pay for it. If you go to the grocery store and you pick up a box of Cheerios and head out the door, they want you to pay for it. They don't want to give it away to you. It's the same thing with water and sewer. I tell folks almost everywhere, almost every time, that water and sewer service are business functions. Some are owned by private for-profit entities. Many, especially in the water and sewer realm, are owned by local governments. So while you all, ratepayers, just ratepayers as opposed to ratepayers plus folks who are trying to own and operate and run the system right, you all will have a natural inclination to think that these folks are getting too much money from you to be able to own and operate, run, stay in compliance, all that other stuff for water and sewer systems. There's always going to be a divide like that. You all have a certain set of information and knowledge about systems. They have a different set. And frankly, they have a more thorough set because they're internal of the system. They're owning, operating, managing, making sure the system stays in compliance, provides good service, all those sorts of things. It is The same thing for those of you who are business owners and running your business. You know a lot more about owning and operating and managing that business than what these folks do. So there's always going to be that divide. Rate analysis in my practice tries to get at informing you all what it is that they know, informing them what it is that they need to know about how to own, operate, and in my case, especially fund the utility properly. Funding the utility properly has two main parts to it. One is getting enough money. Whether they get it from you fairly or not is irrelevant if they're not getting enough. They've got to collect enough to be able to own, operate, repair, replace, improve, do all those other things to the system. So they need enough money on the utility side. You all deserve fairly structured rates. So in my practice, rate analysis arrives at, as best we can, a set of rates that will fund the utility appropriately and get money from you all appropriately. So it's always a balancing act. There's always the issue of, well, do we really need to do that improvement, this improvement, do it now, and so forth, versus how long can we reasonably postpone doing certain things. So I wanted to lay that kind of dichotomy out for you all and you all. Rate analysis is about trying to get those two kind of like separate groups on the same page when it comes to rates that the ratepayers pay. They need to be adequate. It'd sure be nice if they were fairly structured. So the analysis that I did is cost of service based. That's a term that we use in the rate study or rate analysis field, where essentially, if one of you causes the utility to incur a cost, by all right, you should reimburse the utility for that cost. Of course, the costs need to be reasonable and needed and all those sort of things. But if it's a real cost and it needs to be paid for as best they can, they should want to collect it from the right people. So that causes the analysis to need to look at the nature of costs, in your case, meter sizes, because nature of cost, some of the costs are related to meter size, the capacity of different meter sizes to sustainably pass and accurately meter flow. A little bitty meter, you can only run so much water through it before it coughs or before the metering becomes inaccurate. Big meters, if you run not enough water through them of certain types of meters, they will meter inaccurately in that other direction. So meter size is pretty closely, and it's mathematically related to the ability of flow to go to a customer downstream of the meter. Capacity cost is the maximum capacity cost is established at different points in time when you make the improvements. You put improvements in the ground, and that establishes what your then originally invested cost is, and then the divvying up of that capacity cost over time is what you do by meter size. So if some of you have seen the report, and I'll have some tables that I'll show on the screen here in a little bit, that will show you a 5/8, 3/4 inch meter, the smallest meter on the system. The minimum charge is the lowest for water or for sewer. It's the lowest for the small meter connections. And as meter size goes up, it ratchets up a bit. when the meter size gets real big, then the minimum charge goes fairly large as compared to the minimum charge for the smallest meter size. I also mentioned that I have meter size based rates for water and for sewer. Now, you're not actually metering the flow of sewer in any of your situations. There are some situations where you actually meter sewer flow, but almost always we meter sewer flow based on water meter flow. Most of the water that goes through a water meter at a home or a business goes back down into the sewer. Now, there are times of the year, in the case of residential customers, when some of their flow, and for some customers, a lot of their flow, if they irrigate the lawn a lot mostly, does not go back down to the sewer. So we make allowances for residential customers for that wintertime average flow that basically all goes back into the sewer versus summer flows, which for residential customers, at least some are higher. Now, in your case, since I collected all of the usage data on every meter for an entire year, so every month for an entire year, I could go through individual customer accounts and look at January flow, February, and so on, and see what the usage is like for an individual customer. The city can do the same thing whenever they're calculating sewer bills. So water bills are essentially always based on flow every billing period. Sewer flows for residentials are preferably almost always based on winter average flow. For residentials, for commercial or industrial customers, sewer flow is assumed to be whatever the water flow is every billing period. That's a little bit of a synopsis of analysis, not so much of the math, but the thinking behind the analysis. I look at data for the entire water system, the entire sewer system, flows, current rates, current revenues, expenses during a test year, capital improvement needs during a test year, plus for another 10 years, equipment repair and replacement needs. I look at basically the world of needs in the utility, compare the current revenues with the current or test year expenses, and make assumptions about what will happen to expenses in the future. Inflation happens. So make assumptions about inflation, and then that leads to assumptions about what should happen to future rates. But in order to set future rates up properly, you need to arrive at what an adequate rate is on a this year basis. So that is how I arrive at mathematically in what the minimum charge, what the unit charge, in your case, a conservation rate structure, so another unit charge at higher volumes, and what the usage allowance should be. So that calculation yields a total revenue stream on a current basis. So I calculate the future revenues that would occur based on inflation and costs, and back into the current revenue need, divvy that expense out based on the nature of the cost to arrive at minimum charge, unit charge, usage allowance. So that's the basic notion. Now I'm going to show you a few pieces of the analysis report. Like Rusty was saying, it's pretty long. Yours is, it's about average. I have a few where they run 250 pages because they're looking at lots of different scenarios. What if we do these improvements? What if we don't do the improvements? What if we get a Hunkendick grant? What if we don't get any grants? So we go through lots of scenarios, and each one of those you calculate with a model. One model is about 35 pages, so you layer on a bunch of scenarios, and the entire report gets pretty long. And for you all, it would be extremely boring to try to read, because I have 19 tables of numbers in the model, and then 8 line graphs. Now, those are the more enjoyable parts to read, because you can see colors and trends and things. But those tables that display the data and display calculations, it's really, really big, long mathematical strings. But your report and your situation is fairly straightforward. And that is, you've got current costs. You need to pay your current costs. There will be inflation. Now, I made the assumption that on average, most of your expenses will inflate by 3% per year. Now, keep in mind, right now, the consumer price index is going up about 7.5%, 8% or so. I don't know how long that'll last. I hope it doesn't get worse. I hope it improves. But historically, over the last 2 or 2.5 decades, my main working career in rate analysis, I've seen that the inflation rate in the cost to own and operate a water system or a sewer system goes up about 3% per year, even when the consumer price index only goes up about 1.5%. So it goes up 1.5 or 2 points faster than the general, our consumer general costs go up. I assumed that you would increase rates in the future to match inflation, and I assume that would be 3%. If it drops back to 2%, if you're able to hold the line really good and all that sort of thing, if you're able to hold the cost of capital improvements down, I have some big numbers for capital improvements. But if you're able to hold future costs down, then you may not need to even match all of what inflation does to your expenses. But you'll be able to figure those things out as you work on each year's budget. If you're budgeting for next year and your budget's going to be 3% higher, then my recommendation is raise the rates that you have at that time to match inflation in the budget at 3%. So it actually doesn't matter for the analysis whether inflation goes at 3 or goes at 2 or goes at 5. You need to match inflation once you do the initial adjustments. Now to water. The water rates on average need to go up, or excuse me, go down by 1.3%. Now that doesn't mean everybody's bill is going to go down 1.3% because we have restructuring involved too. We need to get the right amount of money from each meter, but each customer is what it boils down to. So some customers' bills, based on their meter size or based on their flow, they use a lot of flow or little flow. That makes a difference too. But based on meter size and flow, some customers' bills will go up, some will go down, but on average, or it's the revenue stream really, the revenues in the water system can afford to go down 1.3% initially. But then after that, then by the way, that includes a factor for inflation in this year. And then in future years, of course, you need to match inflation. Sewer, the rates are not nearly as close to where they need to be as what water is. Sewer needs to go up 15% and a little change. I can't remember the exact number. It's 15.4%. So sewer needs to go up more initially on average. But again, some customers' bills, even though on average it's going up 15, some customers' bills, based on their meter size and their use, would actually go down. Maybe not a whole lot, but they would go down. Your average water customer, residential water customer, uses 3,200, and I think it was 18 gallons per month. That's the average residential usage rate. A customer using 3,000 gallons would see a water bill increase of $3.10 per month. So add another 218 gallons to that, a little bit of unit charge, and that customer's, the average water customer's bill would go a little bit more than $3.10. I don't remember sewer right off. Rusty, you might.
$1.40. It was
$1.40.
$1.45.
Okay. Now remember, I said that the sewer bill on average, the revenue stream for sewer needs to go up 15.4%. Water could actually go down. But because of restructuring, a low volume residential water customer, their bill needs to go up about $3.10, but it only needs to go up about $45 for roughly that same volume. It's really 2,800 and some gallons for residential. Needs to go up about 45, needs to go up less, even though the average needs to go up more. Obviously, that means that customers who have big meters or they use a lot more than the average residential customer, their bill needs to go up more. Now, I often have folks tell me, well, Mr. Brown, you're raising my bill $25 a month, and this other customer or this other meter size, you're only raising their bill $10 or $5. That's not fair. They're partly correct. That's not fair, but it's not fair because the current rates are not fair. The cost of service rate analysis determines what fair is, and then you can look backwards to figure out whose bill was fair and whose wasn't, or in other words, whose bill was too low and whose bill was too high. If somebody's bill would go down after cost of service rate analysis, that means they're paying too much right now. And then those whose bill would go up, it means they're not paying enough right now. So cost of service analysis helps you to arrive at fairly structured rates, adequate for everybody, structured in a way that's adequate for everybody. So some go up, some go down. On average, it may go up, it may go down. I have to tell you, they almost never go down. I'm kind of surprised that you all were able to, if you have things happen as assumed, which is pretty conservative. I'm still kind of surprised that on average, you can lower your revenues a little bit, at least for 1 year in water. It just almost never happens. And I'll tell you why it just almost never happens. These folks who own and operate and manage and see to the well-being of water systems and sewer systems, they almost never do extravagant things. They're doing just what needs to be done to make the utility function, mostly on a this year basis. I'm going to kind of get on a little bit, but we do this everywhere. We collectively in this country, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's in most countries, we tend to underfund things that we need to have, utility service. We underfund them on a current basis. And as we go through time, we underfund them worse and worse and worse. Now, eventually you can't do that too egregiously for too long, or the system will fail. But we, as a country, are pretty bad about funding utility service the way it really needs to be funded. So that comes home to us eventually, and we have to catch up. In water, I did bring analysis for Ellsworth in 2014, water and sewer. In water, the need for rate increases was much clearer then than it was for sewer. For sewer, it looked like the sewer rates could actually go down because there weren't a whole lot of capital improvements on the horizon that changed over a little bit of time. So you all had to play more catch up with sewer a little bit later on, but you got off to a better start on water, and that carried you well into now. You don't need a whole lot more revenue to, over the long term, to make things work right in water. A little restructuring, but not a whole lot more revenue. Now, a few other high points. Water down on average, sewer up. Restructuring in both, not a whole lot of restructuring on the wastewater side. More restructuring on the water side. So it's interesting. You don't need a bunch more revenue in water, but you need to restructure more on the water side. Your total reserves end up looking really interesting.
Hey, Carl, while you're finding that, just to remind everybody, so you base this on $2 million for water and $2 million for sewer improvements over the 10-year span. We could spend 10 times that on each. But when we looked at, I believe he called it astonishing how much it would cost the rate increase would be. So Wayne, the mayor, and I had the meeting earlier, and we settled on the 2 million over 10 years for each, because there's second and third order effects that come with these rate increases, and not only affects us, only affects we could easily price people out of town if we went for a full solution on our utility improvements, and that would hurt the school because they'd lose students, and it would just be an overall detriment to the city. So we went way more conservative than we probably ought to, but we understand the overall impact that the rate increases would cause. We've also been very fiscally responsible in the last several years, and the debt service that's there, or the money that we typically accumulate for debt service, has had to go down because we've had sufficient revenues and we've spent smartly. But all these decisions really looked at through the lens of the single mother who's barely getting by, or the elderly folks on the fixed income. So while I understand that we've got increases, they were really kind of baseline minimum increases that we thought that we needed to do over the term. That makes sense. Okay. All right, go ahead.
One of the critical things that when I analyze rates, that I develop goals for, is future reserves. It would be one thing for each one of us individually, personally, to go paycheck to paycheck, and we spend all the money every month, and we get to the end of the month and we're barely speaking into the next month before we get another paycheck. It would be one thing for us individually to do that, because mostly we're just hurting ourselves or our family or people very close to us. We're not hurting too many people who depend upon us. Every one of us depends on our water systems and our sewer systems. You have invested money in a home, invested money in a business. You've invested based on the assumption that the water and the sewer will come and go away every day like clockwork, and it's not going to require anything like, well, you know, you can't turn on the water today because the system's real bad, so it's not working today. You can depend on the water and sewer system. Without that, our way of living goes away. We're living real primitive if we don't have that. So the system must have reserves that are prudent so that if something really important wears out, hopefully they can replace it, refurbish it, or take care of it before the thing stops working. But if it does break and stop working, then they have the reserves, they can write the check to be able to buy the pump, the motor, whatever it is that went bad, or preferably the ones that they can dependably count on to wear out over a certain period of time. They've got one or two of those in the shop. And when the thing breaks or it starts to malfunction, they replace it right away. The service keeps on happening. So you got to have reserves to be able to do those things. A prudent set of total reserves for a utility your size, it serves a town your size, needs to be in the vicinity of 75 to 100% of what your annual operating cost is. So those of you who can see the screen anyway, you can see two lines, a blue line and a red line. The red line assumes that you don't adjust rates at all. That you don't adjust rates for 10 years. And you can see that for a pretty long time, the reserves at the current rates, remember I told you that the revenues could actually go down by 1.3%. That's the difference between these two lines. For a little while, those current rates, which are generating more revenue than the recommended rates, for a little while, a few years, you'll actually have more in reserve. But at about 2027, those lines cross. The current rates, because they're not going up at all, but expenses are going up. Eventually, the expenses catch up, and then the current reserves turn downward. Now, they're still pretty positive. They're still at about $900,000. The current rates would be at $900,000 total reserve, but they're headed towards zero. You don't want them to get to zero. If they get to zero, then it's game over for the utility. The next thing that breaks shuts it down. Again, we private citizens, we can do that sort of thing if we want to. You know, it's risky, and sometimes some of us are just stuck in that place. But you do not want your utility to do that. You want the utility to have reserves so it can continue to function pretty much seamlessly. At the recommended rates, the blue line, you can see that it goes up pretty strongly and it pretty well levels out in about 2030 or 2031, meaning that it's keeping up with inflation by that point. Now that reserve level is probably a little strong for a utility your size, but this is, for me, the fun part of analysis in those spreadsheets. I'm able to model different levels of expenses, inflation, initial increase, future increases, all kinds of criteria. I'm able to model those at different levels to find the reserve trend that levels out. I don't want it to tail back down if I can help it. Sometimes it just has to be that way, but I don't want it to be that way. That's the water reserve. Now, sewer reserve is that same table, and it's all the way at the end of the report. Sewer reserve, basically because the sewer revenues need to go up more right away. If you don't raise sewer revenues right away, in about 2023, you'll go to zero in sewer reserves. The expenses are rising faster than the total reserves plus a little interest that you can make off of it. They're rising faster, so you will use the term, go broke in the sewer fund in about 2023. Assuming all the things that I have in the model will happen, inflation, improvement costs, all that sort of thing. At the blue line, the recommended rates structure and level, that line is going to grow pretty gradually up to a reserve level of about $750,000. That one is on a good trend. If you were to adjust rates, you definitely don't want to stay on current rates with the sewer utilities because that one will go to zero much quicker than the water system would. So total reserves, they're an important piece. Capital improvements are one of the main drivers of what will happen to your reserves, but also to your revenue need. Now, I made assumptions about capital improvements, and you have a study going on, and hopefully that will determine what it is that you need to do, when, how much it's going to cost, all those sorts of things. And I made assumptions about when capital improvements would happen, how they would be funded. I assume basically that you would fund 75% with SRF loans or interest subsidized loans and 25% with grants. Grants are kind of hard to get these days. They're pretty scarce. I'm seeing still quite a few 25% of project cost grants, but they're getting a little tough. So I think that's a pretty reasonable assumption on funding mix. And then it's just a matter of how much you might need to do. If 2, 3, 5 years from now, as they go through this planning process, as they start to identify improvement needs, they start to tackle them, they apply for grants and loans, they get further downstream and know much more than what I assume will happen at this point anyway, then they can tailor the rate structure a bit, but especially tailor the level of the rates. If the capital improvements show that they will come in much cheaper than what I assumed they would, and that will hold, if it looks like that will hold, then you may not need to have your bills go up on average 3% or matching inflation every year. You may be able to have those bills go up slower. So in future years, when they look at their budgets, they'll be able to tailor the level of the rates based on that. Now, all of this discussion leads to, well, what will the rates be?
And really, the big takeaway is table 18 on both the water and sewer, correct? Okay, yeah, so like we said, that the average usage for water is about $3.10 a month. The average usage or increase for sewer is $1.45 a month, and then it will vary based on the volumes and then meter size.
I'm gonna come around this way so I can actually see the rates over correctly. You all are not going to be able to see that there. But on the water side, the initial set of rates that you would need to adopt to be able to pay for all of those assumptions and projections in the modeling work out to, for a 5/8 inch meter, they need to pay a monthly minimum charge of $23.68. They have a 2,000 gallon usage allowance, and for all the volume above the usage allowance, or the first volume above the usage allowance, they pay $8.67 per thousand. Once they got to 6,000 gallons of use, then it would jump to $13 a penny. So look, those are called conservation rates. When you use volume above some level in the rate, the unit charge rate goes up, that may not cause you to conserve, but it'll cause you to think about conserving at least. So these conservation rates are 867 and 1301. The break is at, in the case of small meters, 6,000 gallons. Medium-sized meters, 1.5 to 2.5, the break is at 25,000 gallons. So, and the unit charge is slightly less too. So the unit charge starts off for the first 25,000, except for the 2,000 allowance, at 578, and then it goes to 867. That's actually in the same structure that you have right now. I mirrored my recommended structure being priority conservation rate. So I mirrored it to be in the same basic structure that you have right now. And then for big meters, 3 inches is larger, it's 578 and 867 again. But that happens, that rate change happens at 700,000 gallons. So I suspect most of the customers in this 3 and 4 inch sort of size range, most of them probably have use that's less than 700,000. You have a few that are more than 7, and then I think the prison is huge. But that structure mirrors your current structure. That's for in town. For out of town, you may have a few customers that have a different set of rates or higher, basically. That is the water rates. And then the sewer rates, you might keep your rate in mind a little bit. For a 5/8 inch meter, the minimum charge is $25.14. It was $23.67 if I remember right. If I remember right, there's no usage allowance. The unit charge is $4.50. It's $4.50 for everybody for all flow. That's normal practice on the wastewater side. Water, it's very common to have a conservation structure where if use goes above some level, the unit charge goes up. But sewer, we almost always base sewer rates on a level unit charge. We also almost never have a usage allowance. I have one plant right now that does have a usage allowance in sewer, trying to talk them out of it. But that's the normal kind of a structure. Now, 450 is a lot less than on the water side. That mostly has to do with what you put in the ground to be able to source and treat and distribute drinking water, as opposed to collect and then treat wastewater. At least so far, your sewer system has been much more economical on a rates basis, based on the cost to own and operate that system. Those are the in-town rates. I don't even know if you have out,
Yeah, we,
but don't be very
Yeah.
easy. Those are the rates that I recommend. Now, table 18, let's have a quick look at that one, and we'll look at pressure in water. Table 18 is a comparisons table, a bills comparisons table. Rusty already mentioned that for the average residential water customer, their bill will go up about $310, $315. It's in that vicinity. Other customers' bills would go up more or less. Oops, page PR. Okay, the gold highlighted volume range. That is the nearest to your average residential customer. almost always model usage ranges in even 1,000 gallon increments for the first 10, and then I'll ratchet up a little bit after that. But for 3,000 gallons, pretty close to the average residential, the bill would go up to 32.35, or it'd be about 310 more. For sewer, the same range of use for residential customer, the bill would go up about 45 or change close to that. So if you're adding water and sewer together, you know, for your bill situation, call it 450, 475 a month. One thing that I almost always like to and try to tell folks that when we get to that point, your bill will go up about 475 a month. Is there are lots of assumptions in the analysis. The analysis is pretty conservative. I believe it tends to, if necessary, overestimate costs and underestimate revenues, so that the bills that you all pay might be slightly higher than what they need to be long term, but that will be sorted out in the future. You want to keep your reserves headed on a good trajectory. So you want to be conservative when you do that initial rate adjustment. That conservative, I'm pretty sure, estimate shows that the average residential customer using about 3,000 gallons a month of water and sewer, their bill's going up about 475. That's getting the utilities into a really good financial position. And most of us can handle 475 pretty well, especially if you consider that it's delivering you good water all the time and getting the wastewater away and treating the environment.
Yeah, we're gonna lose them pretty soon. So we
Any
gotta,
questions or anything?
yeah, so I'd like to give them a chance to ask you questions, and then we'll wrap it up. If nothing else, just take away that we have some really pending sewer needs that we have to take care of. So it really necessitates the increase on the sewer. The water, we're in okay shape. We're not in great shape, but we have stuff coming down the pipe that scares me. And we're going to target those areas for improvement first. Like you said, he did it in 14. There was a rate increase in 17 and then one in 19. So it's just kind of natural time. And some of our larger users are going to get a break. Some of our lower users may or may not, but the overall average on the conservative improvement plan we thought was tenable based on what he's presented. So to remind you, there's no action requested tonight. I want to give you time to digest this and then get feedback from whoever you need to get feedback from, or whoever wants to offer it. But we really did our best to not price gouge folks and dig too deep. And for what I'm hoping we can accomplish, 475 is a pretty reasonable amount for us to expect, or us to have to pay to keep us where we need to be. So I'll give it back to you, Mr. Mayor.
So you got any questions for Mr. Brown?
Those increases, aren't we kind of looking at that? If I was reading some of the charts, I was reading into that's my building, but wasn't that almost at a compounded rate every year needing to go up? Just, am I reading that right, Kristen? So yeah, we were looking at that increase coming up now this year, but also needing to do that again next year. And
You're talking about the out
compounded
years?
pretty much every year.
Yeah, it's essentially have future rates go up to match whatever inflation in the budget is. So if y'all can hold the line in the budget, then I almost always recommend, don't do that just because you can do it one year, because the next year you may figure out, well, we held the line last year, but now we got to go a double.
Yeah, so,
If
but
you can hold it for a long time, then yeah, you
Yeah.
can slow down the future increase.
no, we're not, it's not saying that we raise water $3.10 a year.
No.
Because the debt service so the revenue that we have now that's going to debt service when those loans and bonds sunset will keep us, we'll be able to keep the rates consistent and the revenues consistent because we're not spending the money elsewhere. Okay, yeah, so we're not, it's not a $30 increase over 10 years. It's that $3.10 offsets the money we're spending now on something else. So,
To kind of put a number to it, if someone had a $30 bill and their bill needed to go up 3%, that's 90 cents.
So you're basically saying the 310, 315, one time, then it's inflation after that.
Inflation after that.
All right. I understand.
Yeah, the initial adjustment gets you set up to go into the future, just matching inflation.
That was a good question, not 310 a year.
Yeah, no,
Right.
no, it's not every year. That's a one-time deal. And also along those lines, those whose bills would go down initially, then they join in all future years, their bill going up 3% a year. So they're not, exempt from future increases.
Yeah, I think I was looking at all the charts and my eyes at one point started combining. Yeah.
So any other questions for Mr. Brown? Thank you, Mr. Brown.
You are welcome.
Thank you so much.
Let me close with this. If you all do have any questions, as you read, and I'm sure Wayne is going to read it 3 or 4 more times, he'll probably come up with some questions then. If you do have any questions come to mind, just filter them through Rusty, because you might have a couple of people having a similar question. And at Belize, by filtering them through Rusty, he's my primary contact. That way I make sure Rusty's always in the loop. I don't want somebody to call me direct and then I model some sort of thing and we surprise Rusty.
Thank you. All right, moving along here, we are still on unfinished business. This will be the item number, agenda item report AIR 22-039 demolition bids.
all right, Mr. Mayor, Council, these are the demolition bids for the 3 properties that were condemned. It looks like we had about 6 people pick up packets, 2 people return them. Western Sales from Bunker Hill, who's done work for us before, and Deal Construction. You see Deal's quote to demolish the 3 properties were $17,100, and Western was $17,100. Deal was considerably higher. So given that we had good results with Western in the past, we recommend awarding the bid to Western to demolish the address has just left me. 225 St. Louis, 221 West Street, and 1105 North Park.
All right, do we have a motion to approve the demolition bid for the name of the company's Western? Correct, Rusty?
Yes.
Western.
I make a motion to award the demolition product to Western Sales Company in an amount not to exceed $18,000.
I'll second.
Ms. Hanson's made a motion to approve the demolition for the 2 properties for Western Sales not to exceed $18,000. Ms. Coach has seconded it. Is there any discussion?
When is he gonna, when is he gonna start doing this?
I don't think we have a solid date for him yet. Well, because I know Deal was booked much further out than JR was. So once it's approved, we'll get you an answer.
The questions?
And it's 3 properties, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
3 properties. All right, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries. The agenda item, basically AR 22-039 for the demolition bids will be awarded for no more than $18,000 to Western Sales for those 3 properties. Very good. On to the next item, the airport beacon bid acceptance. This is agenda item AIR 22-043.
All right, Mr. Mayor, Council, this is a project that was approved last year. Brad, you want to say anything? You do not have an hour.
I do too. My goal was to be the longest one here, so.
No,
First, you must summarize.
Once you
the
get
water
Rob
report.
first. So about a year ago, 6 months ago, we started this, we looked at the total cost of the grant, about $187,000. All total right now, we're about $177,000. So we're kind of relieved about that, given to this competitive climate we're in right now. On March 21st, we opened bids. We had a successful bid of LNS Electric out of Salina. Doesn't surprise me. They are doing the work right now, all the runway work, all the electric work, not only the equipment shed, the equipment room, but also the lighting. So their bid was $122,128.75. With that, because there is a sole source item, FAA grant dollars require that when you bid projects, you go out and get award from anybody that's eligible. Since there's one sole source item, we did get a quote for the beacon itself, a light, for $10,611.01. That's something the city will buy. It'll still be treated in the grant as a 90% match, just like it's in the contract. And then with the $45,077 of the engineering, bidding, grant work, construction, project closeout, between Bench and Kirk and Michael. It's a total project cost of $177,800. The FAA will pay about $160,000, a little more than that. The city share is 10% or $70,776. So we're just here tonight. Any questions you have as we go? What we'll do tonight is I request you award the contract to LS Electric in the amount of $122,128.75 for the installation of the airport beacon, and authorize city staff to execute that purchase of the beacon in the amount of $10,611 from Halliburton. And this is contingent upon FAA approval. You can also authorize Rusty to sign the grant agreement that's due by Thursday. So what we'll do is we'll sign the grant agreement for all that. We'll send it up to FAA. We'll sit and wait probably until about June, maybe July. They'll come back and say your funds have been congressionally authorized. You're good to go. At that time, the contract will move forward. Probably sometime this fall. That we remove from the hangar that's there.
Okay.
And you allocated sufficient funds in the 2019 temp note to cover these capital improvements. So the money's already been allocated. It's just the formality of you guys approving the LNS Electric.
Very good. Are there any questions for Brad? All right, is there a motion to approve the authorization for LNS Electric?
I'll make a motion to approve the bid for LNS Electric LLC in the amount not to exceed $180,000.
Yes.
122.
Wow. Yeah, I'm sorry. So I put it in there as a total 180,000. Understanding that we owe 10% of that.
Yes.
I'll second.
Councilor Johnson has made the motion to approve the amount of 122,000. Rusty, what was it again?
122,
Yeah.
128.75. Ms. Coates has seconded the motion. Are there any questions or further discussion?
Quick clarification,
Sure.
city's good to buy the 10,611. I'm sure they are. And then Rusty sign it. Make sure it's supplied or in there.
Right.
You understand?
We need to throw the light in there, don't you?
Yes.
That's in that line, that 10,000 is part of it.
Okay.
77.
So do we need a motion for that too?
Well, he just,
Okay,
well, yeah.
okay,
The motion is good. We'll just have to make sure Brittany captures it correctly in the minutes.
okay.
Ready to have it? All right. Yeah, it was a lot.
It's recorded.
Very good. All right, so have we made a motion yet or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Motion and second.
Second, so, all right, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, motion carries.
I say real quick, give me 30 seconds. The runway project's ongoing. We should have a runway open here in the next couple of months. And the project completion will finish all phases by late summer, early fall. It's going well. It's 100% funded by FAA. We anticipate no money out of pocket at this point in time, and I'll be here to pop the champagne when that happens on that huge project with nothing local. And we do have a pretty full, even with that project going on, we just did, you still have a pretty full amount of entitlement money coming out. So probably next year, we have 600,000 entitlement. Probably use or lose 150, it's all 90% match. In addition, with the federally funded infrastructure bill, you're also going to get about 150,000 there for the next 5 years also. So we're going to have about, our city. The city's going to have about 1.5 million, somewhere in that ballpark, to be used in the next 5 years. And we're working on actively wrestling there for four projects, but just keeping that bug in the air with the 10% match, then we'll be out there with about 150,000 over 5 years. So just put the plug in to be prepared and all good things.
Good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, so we wrapped up all unfinished business
Yes, sir.
and we're moving on to new business. So the next portion is the public comment policy. We have the ability to create a written policy for future public comments. There's agenda item report AR 22-041. Rusty, would you like to make some?
Okay. The only thing is, the only thing different between the proposed policy and the current policy is we've extended the minutes from 3 to 5 minutes to give the speaker that much time. And then we've added a provision that once and they can only talk about things not on the agenda during that initial petition and delegation period. And then when we get to actual agenda items, once it's been discussed, if you make a motion and a second, then we would allow a kind of at the discretion of the mayor, a time limit for the public to comment on that item and to allow you to, if you wanted to poll the audience, for example, on something, that provision's in there now, but it's structured more than just, people raising their hand or speaking up. The mayor would have discretion to stop public comment if things got out of hand, which we haven't witnessed yet, but I've seen meetings where things get out of hand.
Yeah, if I
but
might
anyway,
add,
go ahead.
so really, I think it's really smart. It's basically 5 minutes. They don't have to list their street address anymore. They just basically say they're a city resident or not. That's important. And they're going to be divided up between the public comment portion. They're going to be given 5 minutes, and then the agenda item portion. So if we go back to that January 24th meeting, that group that came in really had 2 different times to talk. They would have, under the new policy, they would have each had 5 minutes before the agenda item. Council would then have had the ability to ask direct questions one at a time, if they so choose. If they don't choose, then public comments, that will be the end. So it's going to be directed by council, the questions, not by the mayor, not by the folks that are in the audience. It'll be you that ask the questions until you're satisfied with the answers so that you can come up with the information you need. And of course, we put at the end, as there always is, there are going to be other scenarios. Let's say 500 people are standing outside this room. All right. I'll have to use my discretion. Probably I'll just choose 5 people to come in, 5 minutes each to represent that group. So we're prepared for larger groups really in the future. I think it's pretty well structured and takes care of a lot of items. So anyway, any questions over it?
One thing that I might have, so if we have a comment period after we have a motion and a second, is there any concern that we're going to do a lot of changing motion after we get comment?
I mean, the whole goal of the policy is to increase transparency and dialogue. So if somebody makes a point and you change your mind, you vote. If it was going to be 4-1 and you're like, oh no, that's a really good point. Now it's 2 vote yes, then I we risk extending the meetings, but I don't think we risk anything bad happening by you guys having the most information possible.
So for clarification on my part, you're saying motion second, then public comment, then vote. Am I
Yes.
understanding that?
Yes.
Okay.
If they choose,
Right,
questions one at a time. If they don't choose, 5 minutes, and it's just quiet. That's it.
Yeah.
And so 2 examples, we had the January 24th, and we also had Mr. Hobbywalks came in for public comment over, he was discussing a local bid, and we did it correctly really at that point in time. He made a comment, it was a public comment, and nobody had any other questions. That ended. There was no further questions. We just moved on. So we kind of already do it in certain ways. It just provides a little bit of structure. All right, with that said, is there a motion to approve agenda item AIR 22-041, public comment policy?
Mr. Mayor, I'd make a motion to approve agenda item AIR 22-041, which is repeals ordinance
No,
20.
no.
Oh, sorry,
No.
wrong one.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, there we go.
I'll second that.
All right, Ms. Hanson has made a motion to approve the new public comment policy AIR 22-041. Councilor Renard has seconded that motion. Are there any other questions, any more discussion? All right, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, the motion carries. The new public comment policy will be put into place, and I believe we have to notify the public, correct, Melissa? Sometime to let them know.
probably just. waiting.
Okay. All right. And I will remind people too. I'll just remind them when they come in. So, onward to the next item. We're going to be looking at repealing ordinance number 2895 and approving ordinance number 3124.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, council. So as it is now, if you have a fire or something that damages your property, but it doesn't cause more than 75% of the property, the face value of the property damaged, the city does not get the portion of the insurance proceeds. So now if you get $100,000 from your insurance company to repair your property, the city gets 20% of that we hold. Like, so that your garage burned down, we hold that 20% until you clean up the burned up area, and then we release the funds back to the property owner. We've had a few in the last year that didn't meet the 75% threshold, so we want to change that to a 50% threshold, allowing us to receive and hold those insurance proceeds until the property is brought up to code or made safe.
So does the insurance company actually give you guys that percent,
Yes.
or is the homeowner responsible?
No, in a perfect world, the insurance company sends it to us
Okay.
based on our ordinance.
We have run into this last one on North Grand Avenue, even 50%, we would not have gotten any funds because of the amount of damage. And so we were looking at, it would have had to been 25% for us to get anything. So we know that there are some cases where we're not going to get it. The question we kind of had in the office is 50% enough, or do we need to go down more? And it basically just holds people more responsible, like, you want to get those funds back, please fix your mess. Or when they don't do it, the city has something to pay for the demo that we have to do on it.
Okay.
It doesn't change the percentage that we receive.
No.
Just the percentage
Yes,
where we are.
correct.
Is there a motion to repeal ordinance number 2895 and approve ordinance number 3124?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to,
That's number 2895 and state ordinance number 3124.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion from Councilor Scritchfield to repeal ordinance number 2895 and approve the ordinance number 3124. Councilor Bernard seconds that motion. Are there any other questions? Is there further discussion? All right, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. The ordinance number 2895 will be replaced with ordinance number 3124. That was agenda item AR 22-042. Moving along to the chip seal project. That is an AIR 22-037. And Delvin, would you like to give us a little bit of background on this one?
Okay, I put out bids for this year. Everybody was hesitant because the price is going up. Circle C finally come back with a bid of 54,827. Holland Paving come on with a bid of 100 and over 100,000. So my recommendation is to go with Circle C.
And there's a typo in the recommendation. So the recommended motion would say not to exceed 55,000 instead of 54,000. I transposed the number there, but
So it should be 55,000.
yeah.
Yeah, it looks like their unit cost is up about 34% from last year, which is what we're seeing across the board. Everybody who's been to seal right now, it's all the oil price is where that's at, so that's very reasonable.
And you guys did see that some of that's to go for the cemetery. So we can keep those roads up.
I mean, they're telling us that oil companies are only giving them, only hold prices for 3 weeks now at the most. So it used to be 3 months at the full price. Yeah.
All right. So do we have a motion to approve the chip seal project? The vendor would be Circle C for no more than $55,000.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the proposal from Circle C Paving in an amount not to exceed 55,000 for the 2022 chip seal project.
I'll second.
Ms. Coates has made a motion to approve the paving contract from Circle C not to exceed $55,000. Councilor Hanson has seconded that motion. Is there any more discussion, any more questions relating to the chip seal project? Any questions? All right, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, the motion carries. The chip seal project will go to Circle C for an amount no more than $55,000. That was AAR-22-037. And the final item on the new business portion of our meeting agenda is for a wide area mower. That is AAR-22-038. And I believe Delvin, you got some background on this one too.
Yeah, I put out bids on wide area mower, which is around 11 feet. John Deere could not even bid one until 2023. Toro and I'm drawing a line here. Toro and Jacobson, both were around 80,000 for brand new ones. Jacobson found a used one with 165 hours on it, and he would sell it for $55,000, but it's out of warranty. It's 3 years old, and it has no warranty on it. We can buy extended warranty, it's anywhere from $4,000 to $8,000. So. And I didn't get specifics because he just got back with me before the meeting. I don't want to say about the extended warranty.
But there's a short warranty. He sells us the mower. It's the vendor, provides at least.
Well, so what the mayor's talking about is on Friday when we spoke, they could not find a manufacturer extended warranty. So Jacobson was going to provide some figures for an in-house warranty, which is what Delvin is talking about.
Well, they
Well-
won't do it in-house.
Oh, they won't do it now.
These will be second.
Okay, all right, well, scratch that then. So that changed from Friday. So the bottom line is we need the mower. And the only one that we're gonna get in 2022 is a used one with 165 hours on it. So to give you some context, Clayton said last year he mowed about 400 hours. So it's pretty lightly used considering it's 3 years old and basing off the volume that we mow. They did bring it up to the shop. Delvin and Clayton went through it and rode it and cut with it. I would advocate that we buy this mower and then Delvin and I keep shopping for some type of extended warranty. Whether it be $4,000 or $6,000, whatever it turns out to be. Either way, it's significantly cheaper than buying the new one, which is about $20,000 more this year than it was last year. And I am not convinced that it's not gonna be 20,000 more next year when we actually get to it. So Delvin and Clayton, who's gonna be the primary operator, we're comfortable with the machine. I'm comfortable accepting the risk of the mower as is, and we'll continue to shop later for a warranty that we think is economical, because the 12-month $4,000 warranty I didn't think was very good considering the components that it covered. But we'll look harder at the $6,000 and $8,000 warranty when we get more information on that. But the request now is just to buy this particular mower before it's gone. Because this is bigger than what we have now, right? It's a foot wider.
Yeah, it's like over 10 horsepower more.
Yeah.
And you would trade in with this.
Well,
Nobody wants it. We can get 5,000 out of Toro, which we're not buying obviously.
and I believe Patrick said that he could use, perhaps, but didn't you say that you could also perhaps use it?
Well, if something goes down, I mean, it probably might be worth more to us keeping it and storing it than trying to sell it for less than what it's worth, maybe. And I think somebody talked about the airport perhaps as well, and
Yeah, if we gotta build all that out, we're gonna be like, keep all that.
Sounds like they're gonna be flush.
So how long do you typically keep mowers like this on?
Usually 5 to 6 years, so we're going on stuff now.
The total price was 55,000.
Yes.
Yes. And this money comes from municipal equipment, which is sufficiently funded in the budget for this year.
And when you guys went through it, you didn't see anything on the budget?
Yeah,
We'll just have
the front tires are air and they're gonna throw in 2 front hard tires, so I mean, not that that's a lot, but that we should fix the 2 front gauge tires.
All right. So the wide area mower, the $55,000 wide area mower, do we have a motion to approve the purchase of the $55,000 wide area mower? That is AIR-22-038.
Mr. Mayor, I'd make a motion to approve the purchase of a used Jacobson wide area mower not to exceed $55,000.
I'll second. All right, Ms. Hanson has approved the purchase of a used Jacobson mower not to exceed $55,000. Councilor Johnson has seconded that motion. Any discussion? Any further questions about the mower? All right, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, the motion carries for the purchase of the $55,000 used Jacobson mower. That is AIR, that is the agenda item report, AIR 22-038. Okay, the last part of our meeting is basically a reporting or a summary report from the department heads. I don't see the recreation is here, but the golf course, Patrick, you have anything?
just real quick, our new round carts are in, and we're getting out on the course. They were greatly needed, so thank you again for approving that. They are now high school came and put our logo on them, and they were being rented, so.
Nice, very good.
Whiskey tasting on Saturday,
What's that?
the event on Saturday.
Whiskey tasting is on April 2nd, still plenty of room if anybody's interested.
That's sponsored by Thinks, so Thinks and the golf course partnered for that event, so.
All right. Street Department, any other updates?
I have nothing else tonight.
Okay. Water and sewer, not represented, fire, not here. Chief, do you have anything?
No, as a, have problems getting the mower. As you know, we ordered a vehicle, at 150 in July. It was set to be here yesterday. As you can see, it is not here. I reached out to GSA. It is on order, so we do know that. But, no VIN number has been assigned, and I wanted to make sure I was correct in my theory on the VIN number. The VIN number is not assigned, therefore it's not even started production, and they said that was true. It has not, and they have no idea, or can't give them a time when production will even start. According to the contract or the paperwork I was emailed when it was ordered, it said something about, I'm paraphrasing here, after 30 days, there is deductions, like we do construction, they have so much time to do it, they don't get that much time, and they start having to give money back. I reached out to him, I said, well, what is that? And is that even in existence now because of the COVID world we live in? And the person I was dealing with did not know. They forwarded that on to somebody who hopefully wouldn't know. I have not heard back. So we're probably at the minimum 30 days out, and that's in a perfect world where it gets started tomorrow. They indicated that the plant in Kansas City where that 150 is built are either on limited production or no production. So this is where we are on that. The course has been stripped and it's getting stickers removed right now. I took all the equipment out, but the individual who outfits our car said he would take the stickers off for $60. It would cost me a lot more time than $60 to do it, so I graciously allowed him to do that. Once I get that back, then we'll get the items that you guys previously have stated as excess property. So I don't know if Mr. Arnado had mentioned, I missed it a couple months ago to me, or a few weeks ago, but in case you wondered, the reason the Durango is not stickered yet is we are changing the stickers from what we currently have to a new scheme, and we were kind of working through those, what we wanted, how in there. So it will be stickered this weekend.
Very good, thank you. City Attorney?
Quick update for you on the old hospital case. I never remember where we left off. I received a contact from an attorney who is going to represent 1883 Investments, the current property owner. He did file an entry of appearance in the case. Switched around some judges, which resulted in a rescheduling. So currently set for hearing April 27th at 2 p.m. That'll be via Zoom. We have a temporary restraining order in place, and that has been extended to the date of that hearing. And then that hearing is basically to ask for the temporary restraining order to become permanent. I do anticipate that I will be contacted by this attorney to try and work with the city sometime between now and then. He kind of indicated like that was their goal, so.
So the temporary restraining order, the goal is to make it permanent.
Right, yes, it's called an injunction once it becomes permanent, but it's just phrasing.
Okay. All right, any questions about the old hospital?
The restraining order is against the ghost hunter people. It is to prevent anyone other than the current property owner from entering the building. It is basically to prevent the property owner from granting access.
And I may have missed this, do we have any deed from the new owner, yet any evidence at all of
No,
ownership?
and I think we talked about this last time.
Okay.
There's no more social media, YouTube, anything revolving around that.
Very good. Any other questions for her, clarification? All right, city clerk? Brittany, do you have anything?
I just have one thing, and we kind of brought it up in City Clerk Institute, and it was kind of brought up because I put the post about the chickens. And knowing full well we're going to have comments, The question at Institute is, are we allowed to turn off comments or notifications for informational posts? I don't know if you've read all of the comments, but every time we seem to put out an informational post, the majority of the comments are not from Ellsworth citizens. And it usually turns into something completely different than what we just informed the citizens on. So I kind of offered that I would ask our council what their thoughts were on if we are just reminding someone of an ordinance or a resolution. Are we allowed to turn off the comments just so it's for information only, or would you like to continue to see those comments?
I would resort that question to the city attorney and the fact of can we turn off the comments?
I don't think there's anything that says we can't.
Will Facebook allow us to turn off the comments? Okay.
Yes, we can.
I can't on my page.
Yes, it was a big thing in our city clerk institute about this because some city clerks and other officials, the name calling that happens on comments and stuff. And we saw a little bit of it on this post, honestly. We weren't sure if they were talking about the city administrator or the county attorney because they put CA. And I don't know how the county got brought into this entire thing, but they were going to put chickens on the lawn. So
On my own personal.
courthouses.
Oh.
But, or informational things, I just don't feel like if someone wants to comment, we have these open meetings for a reason.
Or I think if they have comment, they can call the city hall.
Yes,
That's my thing. Because if you have to
absolutely.
call city hall, you're probably not gonna comment.
That's
Yeah.
my thought too. So I just thought I would ask if you guys were okay with that.
Because honestly, it was very hard to not comment, like,
Yes.
those of you that are complaining that we can't have chickens, will be the ones that are complaining when your neighbor has chickens. But I kept it quiet. So I think turning off comments is fine.
I know in the past on another issue, there were individuals trying to goad us into making comments back and.
Yeah.
Very little positive like that.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think we have plenty of chairs out there if they want to come in and they've got, as of tonight, 5 minutes instead of 3, and they don't have to tell us where they live. They can just say they're a city resident. And if you have further questions, you're going to be allowed to ask questions until you are tired of asking chicken questions. You know, and we now have really solved that. So, and we do want public comment. That's the reason for the change, but we want it in a way that we can solve the problem, right? The next person on the list is the city administrator, Mr. Martin.
Okay, so the next step with the water thing is we will put together the ordinance with the proposed rate changes. I'm not sure that we'll do our best to get it for the next meeting, but it may be the recess meeting in April before you vote on that. But if in the interim, if anyone has questions or comments, they can email me, they can call me. We will do our best to answer them and explain any gaps from what they heard tonight. As part of the work that BG Consultant is doing with the PER, he began putting together a RFP for the sewer main project down by the railroad. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks, or next couple of meetings, we'll have an RFP for you to approve to do our first sewer project, which is badly needed. And Wayne could probably explain to you in better detail why it's badly needed, but it's something that we have available funds to pay for on hand. But it's in short, we got a really old line and we need a new line, and we got money to pay for it. So the RFP is being proposed that anyone can bid on design and construction, not just BG. And then finally, I gave you a hard copy of Verl's report for the month. And as you can see, he contacted or fielded 20 either complaints or things that he noticed. 18 have been brought into compliance. 4 of them he had to issue 10-day orders on, and then you have a breakdown of what the infractions were. So if you have any questions about that, I'll be happy to either get the answer for you or answer them. And that is it, Mr. Mayor.
Very good.
We did hit the over, Brittany. She asked for an over and under, and I said 90 minutes, and we are now at 94 minutes.
We'll try to, yeah. Counselor Combs, do you have any other questions, or would you like to add to the 92-minute meeting, or no pressure?
Well, after the meeting, I got another chicken question. So what can we do to get chicken in the city limits? And I'm pretty sure I've already asked this because I was pretty sure Chief said nothing.
Well, I mean, that's,
So here, I'm just.
I mean, it's up to you.
Citizens want to know,
yes, well, it's up to you, 6,
do we want chicken?
yes. And if 3 of you vote yes, then we get chickens. No pressure.
There we go. Somebody wants it that bad, they can come in, help, make us vote.
Yes.
There we go. They got 5 minutes. Right? They don't have to tell their address. Anybody, you want to ask questions, you can ask them if you don't, and that's the end of public comment policy. So, but yeah, that's a great point. You know, they're certainly welcome to do that. So anything else? Okay, very good. All right, Councilor Johnson, do you have any questions or comments? Very good. Mr. Scritchfield?
Oh, I just wanted to kind of follow up with Carl's comments tonight and talk about, we have hired PG consultants to do a rate study, and we're looking at our first sewer project. We, as a city, are at a critical point with our water and sewer infrastructure as well as other infrastructure. But we are not only facing a problem that our system is aged, but it is also becoming a problem to maintain. And we are facing a labor shortage as well. So the easiest way to keep people happy in their job is to make their job as easy as possible. And we can do that a little bit by fixing our infrastructure and making, so those guys don't have to show up on Christmas Eve in a snowstorm to get down the water and pull the water to fix a water line. It's dangerous, it's unpleasant, and I've been out there with them, and the morale goes in the toilet really quick. So it's really important that we keep on track and actually get some of these projects done. We've been talking about it for years and years, and I think we're actually going to take some steps to make some improvements. So I think that's important. I hope everybody's in that. So that's all.
Well said. Well said. I think that's what I didn't really think about was the labor piece to that. So, Councilor Renard, do you have any further, any additions, any comments?
I don't have anything this evening.
Very good. Ms. Hanson, do you have any? All right, so I think the next person on the list is myself. I've got a lot of people to thank. Thank you for handling the meeting last meeting. I appreciate that. I asked an individual to meet me on March the 12th, kept going back to March the 14th, and I kept saying, well, let's do the 12th. And finally, I succumbed and said, I'll meet you on the 14th. So that's unfortunately couldn't be here, but I really appreciate the backup. I want to thank Scott Clemenson and Carol. We had a couple discussions last week. They brought a concern to me, and we worked through it the best we could. That's being good citizens and, following up as well as we could. And thank you, Karen, for coming in and keeping us informed about different things happening out in the community. There are things that I didn't know about, and I've been coming to these meetings since probably May. And, you play a role, and we all do. And, Alan doing your job and everybody here. So just a lot of thank yous, Mr. Barnado, for, your military service and getting that quilt Saturday evening at the American Legion. That was really nice. So let's congratulate him for that. And just all of you for doing an outstanding job tonight. It was a long meeting, a lot of information, a lot to remember. We got through it. So just want to do a lot of thanking tonight. And with that said, we are close to the end here.
I'll make a motion.
There we go. Okay. Ms. Coates makes a motion to
I'll
adjourn.
second.
Ms. Hanson seconds that motion to adjourn. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Okay, bad news though, I found